Brooklyn under a rainy night sky was a canvas of secrets, painted black and dripping wet. A soft drizzle pattered down, each drop kissing the pavement and catching the faint glow of yellow streetlights, flickering like eyes in the dark. From somewhere distant, a patrol siren wailed, a sharp, jagged sound slicing through the stillness, a warning of chaos creeping closer. Tonight, Emily Carter, a 17-year-old black girl with eyes blazing like untamed fire, stepped out of the Apollo Theater, her heart pounding with pride and pure, electric joy. Her white dress clung to her slender frame, elegant but rumpled from the sweat of her first-ever solo piano performance. In her hands, she clutched a crumpled Chopin score, its edges curling from how tightly she'd gripped it, a trophy of a star on the rise. Emily took a deep breath, the chilly, rain-soaked air tingling in her lungs as a smile broke across her face. The roar of the crowd still echoed in her mind, every clap a thunderbolt of validation, every cheer a note in a symphony that wouldn't fade. She could still feel the spotlight bathing her face, the way Chopin's melodies had poured from her fingertips like they were part of her soul. But above all, she heard her father's voice, Nathan Carter's deep, steady timbre, ringing from that morning as he sat behind her, braiding her hair into intricate, perfect patterns. "This hair's your crown, baby girl," he'd said, his strong hands gentle as they wove each strand. "Tonight, you're gonna be the brightest damn star in New York's sky." She'd stared into the mirror then, seeing not just a princess, but a warrior, ready to take on the world. Her ballet flats tapped a victorious rhythm on the wet sidewalk as she walked down the empty street, the wind teasing her braids like black silk ribbons dancing in the night. Emily had no clue that in mere minutes, the flashing red and blue lights of a patrol car would turn her perfect night into a living nightmare. A cop with eyes cold as steel would shred her dream with a pair of ruthless scissors, and that crown her father made would hit the ground in pieces. But here's the real kicker. When her dad shows up, the one who started this mess will wish they'd never crossed Maple Street tonight. This isn't just a story, it's a roller coaster of tears, revenge, and a truth so wild it'll glue your eyes to the screen. Buckle up because it all starts right here. Hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment. Tell us how you'd fight back. Rain hammered down on Maple Street, a cold, relentless curtain soaking Emily Carter as she walked, her white dress clinging like a second skin, glowing faintly under the streetlight's dull haze. Her braids danced with each step, the intricate crown her dad, Nathan, had crafted that morning. Hours of care spun into every twist, a badge of pride after her piano solo at the Apollo. Chopin's echoes still sang in her blood, a shield of triumph against the night's bite. But that shield was about to splinter. A low rumble growled behind her, a patrol car stalking closer, its red and blue lights slashing through the wet dark like a predator's signal. Emily's heart kicked up, her breath hitching as she half-turned, caught in the glare of headlights like prey in a trap. The car screeched to a halt, tires hissing on the slick blacktop, and Lisa Harper climbed out, a cop forged by 15 years of Brooklyn's grit, her face a roadmap of weariness, her eyes sharp as broken glass. Rain streaked her uniform, but her stare was dry, icy, and loaded with suspicion. She sized Emily up in a flash. Black girl, too pretty dress, those braids catching light like a dare. "Bad news," Lisa muttered, her voice a rough scrape lost in the storm. She didn't see a rising star. She saw a spark to stomp out. "Freeze right there," Lisa barked, her hand hovering near her belt, fingers itching like they'd rather grip steel than ask questions. "Where you off to this late?" "ID now," Emily stopped dead, the Chopin score quivering in her grip, rain smearing the ink into a gray mess. She took a slow breath, steadying herself like she was hitting the opening bar of a sonata. "Just finished a solo at the Apollo," she said, voice smooth but edged, a quiet strength running through it. "Here's the program. Proof I'm no threat." She held out the soggy sheet, her truth on paper, but Lisa snatched it, gave it a sneer, and dropped it to the pavement with a wet smack, ink bleeding into the flood. "Save it, kid," Lisa snapped, boots thudding closer, loud as a judge's hammer. "That hair? Gang flags all over it. You think I'm some rookie?" A hot spike flared in Emily's chest, anger bubbling under her ribs, but she locked it down tight. She knew that look, judgment dressed up as law, a script she'd faced too often. "This hair," she said, lifting her chin, voice steady as a bass line. "My dad put his heart into it today. It's not a signal, it's love. You've got no call to twist it." Her words landed soft but firm, a wall of defiance built from every time she'd had to stand her ground. To Lisa, it was a slap. Too calm, too sure, and it shrank her in ways she couldn't stomach. "Mouthy little thing, huh?" Lisa sneered, lips curling into a snarl. "Keep running it, and you're mine tonight." Emily's mind spun, quick and cold. She's hunting a win. She won't hear me. But I won't break for her. She's picking the wrong fight. Her eyes locked on Lisa's, a silent vow shimmering through the rain. Lisa's world had warped long ago. Every kid a menace. Every braid a code she'd cracked on worse nights than this. "One more chance," she hissed, voice dropping to a venomous whisper. "Spill it, or you're cuffed." Emily stood her ground, rain tracing her face like tears she'd never shed. "I've got nothing to hide," she said, each syllable a note of resistance. "I'm just walking home." That broke the dam. Lisa ripped the cuffs from her belt, metal rattling like a jail cell's bars. "Obstructing an officer," she spat, snagging Emily's wrist, snapping the steel tight. The bite didn't faze Emily. She didn't flinch. Lisa shoved her toward the car, the white dress a sodden mess dragging at her legs, braids swinging like a taunt with every stumble. The Chopin program lay drowned in the gutter, a crumpled ghost of her victory, sinking fast. Lisa slammed the door shut, and Emily sat, hands bound, soul untouched, staring out as the city lights streaked by in wet blurs. "They can haul me off," she thought, "but they can't haul me down. Dad's out there. He'll turn this upside down." Lisa slid behind the wheel, jaw locked, a bitter churn in her gut she couldn't name. That girl's quiet steel wasn't normal. No fear, no cracks, just power simmering under the surface. She'd sparked something big, and it gnawed at her like a warning she'd ignored too long. She jammed the gas, the car lurching into the dark, her mind fixed. She'd crush this kid's pride before the night was out, no matter what it took. The patrol car tore through Brooklyn's rain-drenched streets, its red and blue lights slashing the night like a jagged wound. Emily Carter sat in the back, cuffs cutting into her wrists, her white dress a soaked ruin plastered to her frame, a faded echo of the star she'd been at the Apollo. The Chopin score was long gone, washed away in a Maple Street gutter, but her braids clung on, heavy with water, swinging like dark banners with every jolt. Her hands ached under the steel's bite, but her eyes smoldered, locked on the back of Lisa Harper's head. She thinks she's caged me, Emily thought, her mind a fortress of ice and fire. She's got no clue. Dad raised me to bend, not break. Lisa's hands clamped the wheel, knuckles bleached, the engine's growl filling the thick silence between them. She flicked her gaze to the rear view, catching Emily's stare. Too steady, too fierce, like a storm brewing behind glass. "You're pushing it, kid," she muttered, her voice a rough scrape, half lost to herself. She'd dragged plenty to the station, but this one stuck, a thorn of doubt she couldn't pull free. Gang hair, late-night strut, classic trouble, she told herself, shoving the unease deep. But that look in the mirror kept clawing at her, refusing to let go. The car lurched to a stop outside the precinct, a hulking brick slab squatting in the downpour like a beast waiting to feed. Lisa hauled Emily out, her grip a vice on the girl's arm, and marched her through the doors. Inside, fluorescent bulbs buzzed like a nest of angry hornets, casting a harsh glare over scuffed linoleum. Emily's soaked shoes squeaked, leaving wet streaks that shimmered like oil under the lights. Lisa shoved her toward a metal chair in the holding room, its clang echoing like a jail bell. "Park it," she snapped, then turned to scratch notes on a clipboard, her posture stiff with the weight of her own rules. Emily sank into the seat, cuffs cold against her lap, the chair leaching heat from her bones. She scanned the space. Bare walls, a cracked mirror bolted up, a desk buried in coffee stains and chaos. Her dress stuck to her thighs, once white, now a grimy shadow. But she sat tall, braids framing her face like a soldier's helm. They can chain my hands, she thought, her inner pulse steady as a war drum. But they can't chain my fight. Dad's coming. He'll tear this place apart. She pictured Nathan's hands, strong and sure, weaving her hair that morning, his quiet power a lifeline burning in her chest. Lisa spun back, eyes narrowing as she sized Emily up. Too chill for a perp, she said, suspicion dripping like tar. That hair's still screaming, gang. I've busted punks with the same cover stories. She stepped closer, towering like a storm cloud. Piano star, huh? Cute lie, I ain't swallowing it. Emily met her glare, unflinching, voice low and firm. It's no lie, it's my life. My dad spent hours on these braids for tonight. Judge it all you want, it's not a crime. Her words hit like a quiet thunderclap, defiance woven into every syllable, and Lisa's jaw tightened, a vein throbbing at her temple. That calm snapped something in Lisa. She'd spent years piling up control, and this kid was kicking holes in it with every breath. You don't see it, do you? She growled, voice rising sharp. I'm the law here, and that hair's a threat. She stormed to the desk, snatched the phone, and dialed with a fury that rattled the line. George, get down here. Bring your kit now. She slammed it down, wheeling back with a vicious glint. We're ending this, right here. George shuffled in minutes later, a wiry barber with gray streaks and trembling hands clutching a black bag. His soft eyes landed on Emily, and his stomach twisted. She wasn't some lock-up thug. She was a kid, out of her depth. Lisa, this legit? He mumbled, voice shaky. She's clean, no fuss. Lisa's stare cut him down. Do it, George, or I'll tag you for obstructing. That hair's a red flag. Chop it off. All of it. George swallowed hard, the bag hitting the desk with a dull thump. He pulled out scissors, their gleam cold under the lights, and edged toward Emily. Sorry, darling, he whispered, voice cracking. Ain't my call. Emily looked up, steady, not begging but resolute. I get it, she said, soft but sure. Go on, I'll survive. Her calm was armor, not surrender, and it shook George as he lifted the first braid. The scissors bit, a sickening snip slicing the air, bouncing off the walls like a gunshot. Braids fell one by one, black ribbons dropping like leaves torn from a dying tree, piling into a heap of stolen dignity. Each cut stabbed at Emily's pride, but she didn't blink. She stared into the cracked mirror, watching her crown dissolve, strand by strand. They think this guts me, she thought, her mind slashing through the pain. They're wrong. Dad's love's in my soul, not my scalp. George's hands quivered, tears brimming as he worked, but Lisa loomed behind, arms crossed, her icy gaze pushing the blade. The last braid hit the floor, and a suffocating hush swallowed the room. Emily's hair was a butchered wreck, uneven stubs where beauty once ruled. She bent low, scooping the braids into her cuffed hands, cradling them like relics from a war zone. George staggered back, wiping his face. Christ, I'm sorry. Lisa turned aside, dodging the guilt twisting her insides. Emily's strength, those eyes boring through the mirror, didn't falter. It roared louder, a silent scream rattling Lisa's bones. She'd wanted to break this girl, but she'd only fueled a fire she couldn't touch. Mike, a rookie cop with a buzz cut and a conscience, slumped against the hall wall, fists tight. He'd caught it all through the mesh window, gut churning like a storm. This is messed up, he growled under his breath. She's no threat. Lisa's gone off the rails. He stayed rooted, voice locked, but his silence cracked the precinct's steel, a rebellion brewing in the dark. Emily sat still, braids gripped tight, her stare piercing the gloom. The room pressed in, heavy with a quiet that promised hell. This wasn't the end. Lisa had ripped her crown away, but Nathan was out there. And when he stormed in, this buzzing cage would flip hard. The scissors had carved deep, honing a spirit ready to blaze. Then a distant thud of boots shattered the stillness. Someone was coming. The holding room stewed in silence, a thick fog of tension hanging over the aftermath of Lisa Harper's savage act. Emily Carter sat on the cold metal chair, her cuffed hands clutching the severed braids like battle-worn flags, her hacked hair a jagged frame around her face. Her white dress, soaked and tattered, draped her like a fallen banner. But under the flickering fluorescence, her reflection in the cracked mirror burned fierce, eyes like storm clouds ready to break. They think they've crushed me, she thought, her mind a steel vault. But Dad's coming. This dump's about to get flipped. Outside, Lisa slumped against the desk, her clipboard forgotten, fingers drumming a jittery beat on the wood. The snip of George's scissors looped in her head, a sound she couldn't shake, and Emily's unshaken stare gnawed at her like a splinter she couldn't dig out. She should be begging by now, Lisa thought, her jaw tight, a cold sweat creeping up her spine. Nobody's that steady unless they've got an ace up their sleeve. Someone big. She brushed it off, pinning it on too many graveyard shifts, but her gut churned, refusing to settle. Mike lingered nearby, his face creased, his silence a louder accusation than any words, his quick glance at her heavy with disgust. Then the precinct doors slammed open, a thunderous crack splitting the quiet like a gunshot through glass. Boots pounded the hall, hard, deliberate, a march counting down to reckoning. Lisa jerked upright, hand brushing her holster, while Mike spun toward the noise, breath catching in his throat. Nathan Carter stormed in, a mountain in a crisp black suit, his presence a black hole sucking the air dry. His face was carved sharp, eyes like smoldering embers sweeping the room, locking on Emily. Time stalled. "Dad," Emily whispered, soft but steady, a faint smile cutting through her storm. Nathan's gaze warmed for her alone, then shifted to Lisa, turning cold as a blade's edge. "Emily," he said, crossing the room in 3 strides, dropping to her level. His hands hovered over the cuffs, then brushed the stubs of her hair, rage flashing in his eyes. A wildfire leashed tight. His voice stayed low, tender. "I'm here, baby girl. This stops now." Emily nodded, her trust in him a rock, unshaken by the night's weight. Nathan rose, his full height a towering threat, and faced Lisa with a stare that could crack concrete. "You," he said, voice a quiet razor, "don't know the storm you've kicked up." Lisa's mouth opened. Procedure, suspicion, something. But Captain Thomas Monroe crashed in, his bulk jamming the doorway, face twisted with fury, his uniform strained, his voice a cannon blast. "Harper," he roared, rattling the walls. "What the hell have you done?" Lisa flinched, her edge crumbling. "Captain, she was out late. That hair scream gang. She resisted." Monroe cut her off, slamming the desk, papers scattering like leaves in a hurricane. "Her name, Harper. What's her damn name?" Lisa fumbled the clipboard, hands trembling. "Emily. Emily Carter," she stammered, glancing at the girl, then back at Monroe. His face darkened, eyes narrowing to slits. "Say it again," he growled, leaning close, voice a deadly hiss. "Emily Carter?" Lisa nodded, confusion swallowing her. But Monroe's wrath erupted. "You dumbass! You got any idea who she is? Who he is?" He jabbed a finger at Nathan, still as stone, his silence a threat louder than a scream. Lisa's stomach plunged, her mind scrambling. "She's just a kid," she choked, but Monroe steamrolled her. "That kid is Nathan Carter's daughter, and Nathan's no pissed-off dad. He's an FBI special agent, our top undercover gun. 3 years buried in Richard Grayson's crew, bleeding to dismantle the East Coast's worst crime lord. You just handed Grayson a billboard to torch it all." Lisa reeled, breath short, the truth hitting like a sledgehammer. Nathan stepped forward, voice low and lethal. "Grayson's been circling me for weeks, sniffing for holes. My daughter gets dragged in, butchered like this. He'll know I'm a fake. You didn't just hurt her. You might have killed me, her, and every life we're pulling from that snake's grip." His eyes drilled through her, peeling her defenses raw. 3 years of sweat and blood, and you lit the fuse with your damn blind hate. Emily watched, pride swelling even as fear flickered. She'd known Nathan was strong, but this was a titan unmasked. "He's not just my dad," she thought, pieces clicking. "He's a shield for people I'll never see." Her resolve hardened, the sting of her lost braids fading against this bigger war. "I'm okay, Dad," she said, voice steady through the cuffs. "I'm tough, for you." Lisa staggered back, pale, words sticking in her throat. I didn't know. Nathan's glare silenced her. You didn't bother knowing, he said, final as a death knell. You've got two paths, Harper. Walk away and let this blow, or fix your screw-up. Lisa gasped. Fix it? How? Nathan's eyes tightened. She's a loose cannon, but she's got the grit to pull this off. If she's got the spine, that's you. An inside play Grayson won't see coming. Monroe yanked his phone, barking into it. Nathan, we've got to move. Grayson's on edge. He turned to Lisa, voice ice. You're done here, Harper. Pray we can save this mess. Part 5. The second climax. A redemption forged in fire. 2,000 words. The precinct crackled like a live wire after Nathan Carter dropped his bombshell. The air thick with the wreckage of Lisa Harper's world. Emily sat in the holding room, cuffs gnawing at her wrists, clutching her severed braids like war relics, her cropped hair a brutal testament to the night's scars. Her white dress hung limp, soaked and torn, but her eyes glowed with an unshaken trust in her dad. Nathan stood over her, his black suit a stark wall against the precinct's grime. His promise, I'll fix this, baby girl. Now a calculated storm brewing in his mind, moves ticking to save his cover and his daughter. Lisa sagged against the desk, clipboard abandoned, her reality splintering under Monroe's fury and Nathan's cold stab. You lit the fuse. Her hands shook, replaying the scissors snip, Emily's steel stare, the braids falling like broken promises. I didn't know, she choked, but Nathan's, you didn't bother knowing, carved deeper than any blade. She'd lived by gut and rules, but now her gut screamed she'd blown it. Catastrophic. Mike hovered close, his silence a spotlight on her failure, eyes flicking between her and Emily with a mix of pity and revulsion. Nathan turned from Emily, pinning Lisa with a predator's gaze. 2 shots, Harper, he said, voice low, each word a cock trigger. Duck out and watch this burn, or step up and scrape your mess clean. Lisa's breath snagged, mind reeling. Scrape it? How? She rasped, her armor cracked wide. Nathan loomed closer, shadow swallowing her. Grayson's twitchy. Emily linked to me cracks my cover. 3 years gone. I need an inside edge, someone he won't clock. She's a loose cannon, but she's got grit, if she's got the balls. That's you. Lisa's stomach twisted, fear clawing her spine. But those braids in Emily's hands seared her, a guilt she couldn't outrun. I shredded her, she thought, self-hate sharpening her edge. If I don't fix this, I'm no better than the filth I swore to bury. She straightened, locking eyes with Nathan. I'm in, she said, voice steadier than her guts. What's the move? Nathan's lip twitched. Faint respect. Hook Victor Steele, Grayson's muscle. Pitch a burned-out cop, chasing Green. Stall him while I rig the takedown. Monroe cut in, gruff. You're off the force, Harper. Done. Don't tank this. Emily's voice sliced through, sharp. Dad, she doesn't rate that shot. Nathan knelt by her, tone softening. She doesn't, Em, but we need her. For you, me, everyone. Grayson's crushed. Emily nodded, faith in him ironclad, her glance at Lisa edged with steel. 2 nights later, Lisa hit a dive bar on Brooklyn's ragged edge, neon buzzing like a dying fly. She'd swapped her badge for a scuffed leather jacket and ripped jeans, hair yanked into a sloppy knot, every inch a cop gone rogue. The air reeked of stale beer and desperation, no rain but a heavy pall choking the night. Inside, Victor Steele held court, a lean killer with snake eyes and a grin that promised pain. Grayson's lie detector, he'd smell a lie from blocks away, and Lisa knew one flinch could end her. She steeled herself, breath deep. Emily stood tall against me, she thought, resolve locking tight. I won't buckle under him. She swaggered in, bar light casting shadows like traps. Talk hushed as eyes turned. Fresh meat in a wolf den. Lisa hit the bar, cool despite the sweat pooling at her back, and barked for whiskey, voice carrying. Cop gig's a bust, she said, leaning hard, tone bitter. Rules strangle you. Pay's a joke. Time for real cash. Victor's head snapped up, eyes cutting through smoke, locking on her. He slithered over, a hunter on the prowl, stopping close. Who the hell are you? he hissed, voice a low rasp, dissecting her every twitch. Harper, she fired back, meeting his stare, heart hammering but face a mask. Ex-cop, sick of the grind, heard you're the money man. Victor smirked, cold and hollow. You think I buy a washed-up badge with a sob story? Lisa leaned in, voice dropping low, conspiratorial. Don't need your trust, need your dough. Got raid schedules, patrol routes, gold your boss would kill for. Test me, I'll prove it. Victor eyed her, silence a test, fingers tapping the bar. After an endless beat, he nodded. All right, Harper, you're on my scope. Cross me, you're dead. Lisa masked her relief as Victor waved her out back. Alley air slapped her cold, palms slick in the chill. I'm in, she thought, but the game was just heating up. Nights after, she scratched notes. Victor's plays, Grayson's moves, her scrawl shaky but dead on. Emily's my anchor, she wrote, ink smudging with a tear. She didn't break. I won't either. Old instincts screamed run, but a new pulse roared louder. Redemption's a fight, not a free pass. The showdown hit at a waterfront warehouse, rust walls looming under a blacked-out sky. Victor hauled Lisa to a meet. Grayson loomed, a hulking beast with a gravel growl and eyes that pierced souls. She played it tight, feeding Victor fake precinct sting intel, keeping his nose off Nathan. But Victor's radar pinged. Mid-deal, he caught her slipping a signal, a tiny Fed's beacon. You lying rat, he snarled, yanking a gun and jamming it to her temple. Lisa's pulse flatlined, but her mind raced. This is my shot, make it count. Pull it, and you're toast, she said, voice steady against the steel's kiss. I've got your dirt. Names, dates, stashes. Drop me, it's Fed's candy. Victor froze, finger twitching, and Lisa lunged, not away, but at Nathan, cloaked as a buyer. The shot cracked, tearing her shoulder as she shoved him clear. She hit the concrete, blood pooling fast, eyes finding Nathan's. Go, she gasped, pain shredding her words. Finish it. Nathan didn't blink. He signaled, and the warehouse exploded. FBI stormed in, guns blazing, Grayson's empire crashing in a storm of shouts and steel. Victor spun, but Nathan dropped him. 2 shots, clean. Grayson roared, shredding files, but Nathan pinned him, cuffs snapping shut. Game over, he growled, voice ice. Agents swarmed, hauling Grayson out, his snarls fading. The hall, drugs, guns, cash, locked down tight. Nathan knelt by Lisa, pressing her wound. Hold on, Harper, he said, respect cutting through. You took that from me, damn tough. Lisa's laugh rasped, fading. For her, she wheezed. Your girl. Back home, Emily perched by the radio, fingers brushing the piano as static buzzed with bust news. He's out there, she thought, heart thumping, hope and dread. Come back, Dad. She struck a note, low, steady, a lifeline to him. Nathan watched Lisa's stretcher roll out, blood streaking the floor, then turned to the wreckage. Grayson was dust, 3 years crowned in fire. She's safe, he thought, chest easing. Time to bring her home. Lisa faded, vision blurring, blood bitter on her tongue. I did it, she thought, a grin through the agony. For Emily. For me. The storm she'd sparked on Maple Street burned out, but it left a new dawn breaking. The precinct hummed with a raw, electric edge after Nathan Carter's revelation hit like a grenade, the air thick with the fallout of Lisa Harper's unraveling. Emily sat in the holding room, cuffs biting her wrists, her severed braids clutched tight in her hands like fragments of a shattered shield. Her cropped hair stood out stark against her soaked white dress, now a tattered rag of her ruined night. But her eyes burned with a quiet, unshakable faith in her dad. Nathan loomed over her, his black suit a crisp barrier against the precinct's filth. His vow, I'll fix this, baby girl, spinning into a high-stakes game in his head, every move calculated to save his cover and pull Emily from this hell. Lisa slumped against the desk outside, her clipboard a forgotten prop, her world crumbling under Monroe's wrath and Nathan's icy thrust. You lit the fuse. Her hands trembled as the night replayed in her skull. The scissor's cruel snip, Emily's unflinching gaze, the braids dropping like fallen soldiers. I didn't know, she'd rasped, but Nathan's You didn't bother knowing, slashed deeper than steel. She'd built her life on instincts, on protocol. But now those instincts howled that she'd screwed up. Epic, life-wrecking bad. Mike lingered nearby, his silence a glaring mirror to her shame, his eyes darting between her and Emily, with pity laced with contempt. Nathan turned from Emily, his stare locking onto Lisa like a hawk zeroing in on prey. "Two paths, Harper," he said, his voice low and loaded, each word a bullet in the chamber. "Bail out and let this blow sky high, or step up and scrub your damn mess." Lisa's breath hitched, her mind a frantic blur. "Scrub it? How the hell?" she croaked, her tough shell splintered. Nathan stepped closer, his shadow swallowing her whole. "Grayson's on a hair trigger. Emily tied to me shatters my cover. 3 years of work, Ash. I need an inside play, someone he won't sniff out. She's a loose cannon, but she's got the grit to pull this off. If she's got the guts to try. That's you." Lisa's gut churned, fear clawing up her spine like a cold hand. But those braids in Emily's grip haunted her, a silent indictment she couldn't dodge. I broke her night, her pride, she thought, her mind razor-sharp with loathing for the cop she'd become. If I don't fix this, I'm no better than the slime I've locked up. She squared her shoulders, meeting Nathan's eyes. "I'm in," she said, her voice steadier than the quake in her chest. "What's the plan?" Nathan's lip twitched, a flicker of approval. "Target Victor Steele, Grayson's enforcer. Sell him a story, disgraced cop, chasing a payout. Keep him spinning while I set the trap." Monroe barged in, voice rough as gravel. "You're off the badge, Harper. Effective now. Don't screw this up again." Emily's voice cut through, firm and clear. "Dad, she doesn't deserve a chance." Nathan knelt beside her, his tone softening like a low chord. "She doesn't, Em, but we need her. For you, for me, for every soul Grayson's crushed." Emily nodded, her trust in him a bedrock, though her glance at Lisa carried a glint of steel, a warning unspoken. 2 nights later, Lisa stood outside a dive bar on Brooklyn's ragged fringe, its neon sign flickering like a dying moth. She ditched her uniform for a worn leather jacket and torn jeans, her hair yanked into a messy bun. Every stitch screaming rogue cop on the edge. The air hung heavy, thick with the stench of cheap booze and despair. The rain gone, but a dark weight pressing down. Inside, Victor Steele ruled the roost, a wiry predator with eyes like a rattler and a grin that promised slow pain. Grayson's lie detector, he could smell a lie through concrete, and Lisa knew one wrong step was a death sentence. She took a deep breath, steeling herself against the fear gnawing her bones. Emily didn't crack under me, she thought, her resolve hardening like iron. I won't crack under him. She pushed through the door, the bar's dim glow throwing long shadows across the grimy floor. Conversations died as heads swiveled, new blood in a den of wolves. Lisa sauntered to the bar, her stride cocky despite the sweat slicking her back, and ordered a whiskey with a voice that rang out. "Cop life's a dead-end scam," she said, leaning on the counter, her tone dripping acid. "Too many rules, no damn reward. Time to cash in proper." Across the room, Victor's head jerked up, his razor gaze slicing through the haze of smoke, pinning her. He slid from his booth, moving like a snake through the crowd, and stopped inches away. "Who are you?" he hissed, his voice a low growl, eyes peeling her apart. "Harper," she shot back, holding his stare, her pulse pounding but her face a stone wall. "Ex-cop, done with the system's boot on my neck. Heard you're the guy with the real green." Victor's lips curled, a smirk cold as a blade's edge. "You think I trust some badge burnout with a sob story?" Lisa leaned closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial hush. "I don't need trust. I need cash. Got raid times, patrol grids, stuff your boss would bleed for. Give me a shot, I'll deliver." Victor studied her, his silence a guillotine, fingers drumming a slow beat on the bar. After a tense eternity, he nodded. "Okay, Harper, you're on my radar. Double-cross me, you're meat." Lisa hid her exhale as Victor waved her out back. The alley's chill hit like a slap, her hands clammy despite the cold. I'm through the gate, she thought, but the real hustle was just kicking off. Every night after, she scribbled in a beat-up notebook, Victor's moves, Grayson's plans. Her handwriting jagged, but her purpose clear as crystal. Emily's strength's my guide, she wrote one night, the words blurring with a stray tear. She stood tall. I've got to match it. Her old cop instincts screamed danger at every turn, but a new fire drowned them out. Redemption wasn't a gift. It was a bloody brawl, and she was swinging. The climax roared in at a waterfront warehouse, its rusted walls hulking under a moonless sky. Victor dragged Lisa to a meet. Grayson loomed there, a massive figure with a voice like grinding stone and eyes that saw through flesh. The air stank of oil and salt, the tension thick enough to choke on. Lisa played her part, feeding Victor fake intel about a precinct sting, her words smooth as silk, keeping his focus off Nathan's shadow. She moved careful, every glance measured, her heart thudding like a war drum. Victor's crew milled around, hard men with harder eyes, unloading crates of cash and powder, the clink of metal and rustle of bills a grim soundtrack. She kept her cool, but her fingers brushed the signal device in her pocket, a tiny lifeline to Nathan's team. Victor's instincts flared mid-deal. He caught her hand slipping the beacon free, a small black box blinking red. "You lying bitch," he snarled, yanking a gun from his waistband and jamming it against her temple. The barrel's cold kiss froze her blood, but her mind raced, sharp and desperate. This is it, my one play to make it right. The warehouse spun in her vision, Grayson barking orders, Victor's finger twitching on the trigger, but she locked it down, voice steady as stone. "Shoot me, and you're screwed," she said, staring into his snake eyes. "I've got your whole game. Names, dates, drop points. Kill me, and it's all Fed's breakfast." Victor hesitated, his grip tightening, sweat beading on his brow, and in that split-second crack, Lisa lunged, not away but toward Nathan, who'd slipped in disguised as a buyer, his black suit blending with the shadows. The gun roared, the bullet ripping through her shoulder as she shoved Nathan clear. She hit the ground hard, blood pooling fast, a hot flood soaking her jacket. Pain clawed her, but she forced her eyes up, finding Nathan's. "Go!" she gasped, every word a knife in her throat. "End it!" Nathan didn't flinch. He signaled, and the warehouse erupted. FBI agents stormed in from every angle, boots pounding, guns blazing, Grayson's empire crumbling in a hail of shouts and steel. Victor spun, gun raised, but Nathan dropped him, 2 clean shots to the chest, his body folding like a rag doll. Grayson bellowed, a cornered beast shredding papers in a last-ditch scramble, but Nathan charged, slamming him against a crate, cuffs snapping shut with a crisp click. "You're done," he growled, voice pure ice. Agents swarmed, dragging Grayson out, his curses swallowed by the night, while others locked down the hall, drugs, weapons, cash stacked high as a king's ransom. Nathan dropped beside Lisa, pressing her wound, his face tight with urgency. "Hang on, Harper," he said, respect cutting through the chaos. "You took that hit for me. You're tougher than I pegged." Lisa's laugh came out a ragged wheeze, pain twisting it into a grimace. "Had to," she panted, vision swimming. "For her, your kid." Nathan's grip steadied her. "You nailed it. Stay with me." Paramedics rushed in, stretcher clattering, and hauled her out, her blood-streaked face pale but alive. Across town, Emily sat by the old upright piano in their Brooklyn apartment, a lone lamp casting soft shadows. Her fingers traced the keys as static crackled from the radio. News of a waterfront bus breaking through. He's out there, she thought, her heart pounding with hope and fear, a tight knot in her chest. "Come home, Dad." She pressed a key, a low, steady note ringing out, a thread tying her to him through the dark. Nathan watched Lisa's ambulance lights fade, then turned to the wreckage. Grayson was history. 3 years of blood and shadow crowned in fire. She's safe now, he thought, a weight lifting. Time to bring her home. Lisa faded, blood bitter on her lips, a faint smile breaking through the haze. I did it, she thought, for Emily, for me. The storm she'd sparked on Maple Street burned out, but it left a new light rising. The warehouse lit up like a war zone, gunfire cracking and glass exploding off rusted walls in a chaotic roar. Nathan Carter's signal had cracked the night wide open. FBI agents poured in from every shadow, boots slamming concrete as Grayson's crew scattered like roaches under a flipped light. Lisa Harper sprawled on the cold floor, blood seeping from her shoulder, staining her leather jacket a wet crimson. The bullet's burn tore through her, but her eyes, cloudy yet fierce, tracked Nathan through the fray. I gave him the edge, she thought, breath shallow, a weak grin tugging her lips. For Emily. Finally did something right. Her vision blurred at the edges, but she clung to the fight's echo, refusing to let go. Nathan moved like a phantom through the madness, his black suit blending into the dark as he barked into his radio. Team 1, pin Grayson, now. Team 2, block the exits. His voice cut like steel, his focus a honed blade, every step a testament to 3 years burrowing into Grayson's trust. Victor Steele swung at him, gun flashing, but Nathan was faster. 2 shots barked out, and Victor crumpled, his snake eyes going dull. Across the chaos, Richard Grayson roared, a hulking beast cornered, shredding papers in a frantic bid to bury his secrets. Nathan surged forward, slamming him against a crate, cuffs locking with a sharp snap. Lights out, Grayson, he growled low and final. Your history. The warehouse fell quiet as the dust settled, the air heavy with gunpowder and the sharp tang of blood. Agents hauled Grayson off, his snarls fading into the night, while others secured the spoils, crates of drugs, guns, and cash piled high like a toppled throne. Nathan dropped beside Lisa, pressing her wound, his face taut with urgency. Stay with me, Harper, he said, his tone softening, respect seeping through. You took that bullet for me, tough as nails. Lisa's laugh rasped out, pain twisting it sour. Had to, she wheezed. For her, your girl. Nathan's grip tightened, steady. You came through. Hang on. Paramedics burst in, stretcher rattling, and whisked Lisa away, her bloodied face pale but breathing. Nathan watched the ambulance lights vanish into the dark, then turned back to the ruins. Grayson was gone, his empire ash, 3 years of undercover grit crowned in triumph. His mind drifted to Emily, to the precinct, to the braids he'd woven that morning. She's clear now, he thought, a knot in his chest unraveling. She's been through hell. Time to bring her home. Across the city, Emily sat at their old upright piano in their Brooklyn apartment, a single lamp spilling soft gold across the room. Her cropped hair felt alien under her fingertips, stubs a harsh reminder of Lisa's scissors, but her hands rested on the keys with a strength unbroken. She'd missed the raid. Nathan had sent her home with an agent after the precinct, but its pulse thrummed in her veins. Dad's out there. Ending it, she thought, her mind clear and steady. He swore he'd make it right. He always does. She shut her eyes, the silence wrapping her like a cloak, then pressed a key. A low, haunting note sparked something new. The melody unfurled slow, a lament for the night she'd lost. Her braids, her victory, her innocence stripped raw. Then her fingers danced, bright notes weaving in, rising like a spark catching flame. She called it Unbroken, a silent story of pain and fight, every chord stitching her soul back together. Nathan slipped in mid-song, his suit rumpled, eyes heavy but warm. He leaned against the wall, watching her play, pride swelling in his chest like a tide. The last note lingered, and Emily turned, her gaze meeting his. You got him? She asked, voice soft but solid. Nathan nodded, crossing to her. Yeah, baby girl. Grayson's toast. You're safe. He brushed her uneven hair, fingers lingering. So damn proud of you. Weeks later, Emily stood on Madison Square Garden stage, spotlight bathing her in a golden haze. A fresh white dress gleamed against her skin, her cropped hair styled bold and fearless. The crowd hushed as she sat at the grand piano, hands poised. This is Unbroken, she said into the mic, her voice steady, filling the vast hall with quiet power. They took my hair, but not my soul. The music flowed, dark, then soaring. Her story spun for thousands, a hymn of survival that stole their breath. When the final chord rang out, her song rippled through Brooklyn, a quiet call to rise that lingered in the streets, and applause erupted, a thunderous wave shaking the rafters. Emily smiled, eyes shining, her scars turned to starlight. Lisa woke days later in a hospital bed, shoulder wrapped tight, her body frail but her spirit flickering back. Nathan and Emily stood by. Nathan stern yet grateful, Emily gentle but firm. "You saved my dad," Emily said, her words simple but heavy as stone. "Thank you." Lisa's throat tightened, voice a rough scrape. "No, you saved me, Emily. Your fight, it woke me up." Nathan's hand landed on her shoulder, firm and grounding. "You turned it around, Harper. That's no small thing." A tear slipped free, relief flooding Lisa like rain after a long dry spell. "I didn't just make it," she thought. "I changed." Months passed and Lisa shed her badge for good, picking up a gig at a Brooklyn community center, mentoring kids who'd faced the same cold judgment she'd once dished out. One day she left a letter on Emily's piano, raw, unpolished. "You showed me strengths, not power," she wrote. "It's heart. I'm sorry, I'm trying to fix it." Emily found it after practice, her fingers tracing the scrawl, a weight lifting with a calm glow in her chest. She didn't write back, not yet, but the air felt lighter, a quiet peace settling in. Their paths crossed again at the center, where Emily taught piano to kids with hungry hands. Lisa ran a workshop, her voice steady as she guided teens through shaking off prejudice. Emily watched from the doorway, then stepped up after. "Read your letter," she said, tone even, a faint smile breaking through. "I don't hate you, Lisa. Glad you're different now." Lisa's eyes watered, breath catching hard. "Thank you, Emily. That's more than I deserve." The silence stretched, not heavy but mending, a bridge rebuilt from the ashes of that rainy night. Nathan stood back, watching from a distance, his daughter's grace and Lisa's shift a quiet win beyond Grayson's fall. The warehouse had been the battlefield, but this was the victory lap. Emily returned to her piano, her music echoing through the center, a lifeline for the kids she taught. Lisa guided her group, her past a shadow she'd outrun, her words a new kind of shield. Together they'd turned pain into something bigger, a ripple of resilience spreading past Brooklyn's cracked streets, a spark ready to catch in the world beyond. Madison Square Garden blazed under searing lights, casting Emily Carter in a golden glow as she stood before a sea of faces, her white dress a radiant flare against the dark. Months had passed since the warehouse raid, Grayson's collapse, and that quiet truce at the community center. Her cropped hair gleamed, no longer a wound but a badge of battles won, styled bold under the spotlight. The grand piano sat silent behind her, keys still warm from unbroken, the anthem that had rocked the crowd to its feet. She gripped the mic, her voice cutting clean through the hush, like a bell in the night. "Don't let anyone define your edges," she said, power pulsing through every word. "Pain doesn't snap us. It's how we rise that carves who we are." In the back row, Lisa Harper sat alone, her leather traded for a plain sweater, her shoulder scar a hidden pulse beneath the fabric. She watched Emily, the girl she'd once cut down, now a beacon burning bright. Tears stung her eyes, not guilt, but a raw, aching awe. "She turned my mess into this," Lisa thought, her chest tight with a gratitude too big to voice. She whispered to herself, "Forgiveness isn't just dropping the weight, it's building something stronger." The crowd erupted as Emily stepped back, and Lisa slipped out, carrying that truth into the crisp New York air. Outside the Brooklyn Community Center, a mural climbed the chipped brick, a phoenix bursting from flames, wings fierce and free. Below it, in bold, looping paint, "You are enough." Emily had drawn the lines, her hands steady as steel, while Lisa and her kids splashed it with color. It stood as their mark, from Maple Street's soaked nightmare to this blaze of hope. Nathan leaned on his car nearby, the mural catching the sunset's fire, pride etched deep in his face. "Grayson couldn't touch us," he thought. "We took it all back and built more." The story didn't end with a bang, but with a ripple, Emily's music spilling beyond the stage, Lisa's lessons shaping young spines, Nathan's quiet strength anchoring it all. It wasn't just survival, it was rebirth. Emily proved grit, scars into songs that shook the soul. Lisa found redemption. Mistakes don't own you if you rewrite the end. Together they showed that even the blackest nights crack open with courage and grace. That Phoenix wasn't just art, it was a pact. From ashes we climb, tougher, wiser, whole.